Episode 437 of the DFO Rundown is always brought to you by Bet365. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Get in the game. Use the promo code NATION, N-A-T-I-O-N, and you'll get in on a variety of games. Of course, it's basically Super Bowl now. Of course, we know the Patriots are going back to the Super Bowl, whether it's going to be the Seahawks or the Rams. We'll see as we record this on Sunday evening. The Seahawks had the early 7-3 lead. So maybe we'll update the pod as we go. But then you got a few weeks until Super Bowl 60. Get on all the action, prop bets, everything else at Bet365. I'm Jason Greger. We welcome in Jeff Merrick, who is the shoveling man down in East Ontario, buddy. You guys, Toronto area. You guys got like a foot of snow.
It's still coming. You know, we're recording this at 7:08 Eastern right now on Sunday. I've been at it since about 8:30 this morning. I've done my property 4 times, my in-laws a couple of times, and when we're done here, I'm going back to the in-laws and then coming back for a nightcap in my backyard. Can I ask, and I really do feel miserable complaining about snow to Albertans, so I'm going to stop right now. I do have a question for you. What is with you and the Adams division? Couple of weeks ago, you're rocking the Sabres style. Now you got the Hartford Whalers hats. What's with you in the Adams division, Greg?
Well, you know, it's funny, actually, if you look at the side there, you'll see it's the STA. That's actually and I had nothing to do with it, but the kids picked the name Whalers, and then one of the parents just went out and made these hats, and I'm like, sick.
That's awesome.
So,
that's great.
Yeah. So, it's St. Albert Whalers is the team name for the kids. And so one of the dads took it on him to make the hat. And I was like, oh, I'll get one of those for sure. Cause everybody thinks it's the whale, but it's actually, it's a little blue and yellow. So, but it is the Whalers, the greatest logo. And the Sabres, I'm just more of a, like I said, like there's certain teams that you can root for because they're never very good. And that's being the Sabres for a long time. And I'm like I've been on Team Tage Thompson, kind of started early in the pod. When we started recording this many years ago. So I've kind of stuck with it. And now I know Lindy Ruff, his younger brother, Brent, who unfortunately passed away on the bus. Him and my brother were best friends, and they played hockey together, really good buddies. So I know Lindy and Shirley and Lisa and his parents are unreal. So the fact that Lindy's there in Buffalo always has a little bit of a little bit of extra panache to it, really, a little extra connection. So I'd love to see him get back to the playoffs. Like it's who would have thought that when Lindy Ruff left the Sabres, they wouldn't make the playoffs until he came back.
until he came back. Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Like at a certain point last week, watching a Sabres game, I think it was the game against Nashville, and I said to myself, like, this is past the point of it's just, oh, look, the Sabres are having a run. Like, I feel this. I'm curious if you do, if our listeners, viewers do. Are we just settled now that the Sabres are good? Are we all on the same page here? Like, we don't feel like this is Charlie Brown in the football. We don't feel like this is a false start with the starters pissed. Like, this feels like the Buffalo Sabres are good. I know it might be a weird feeling for a lot of people. It certainly is for me, someone who grew up in southwestern Ontario, idolizing the French Connection. But are we all settled that the Buffalo Sabres are good, Jason Greger?
But they've been good now for a 2-month stretch, right? Like, I know because it was a 10-gamer, and you're thinking, oh, well, we saw a 10-gamer that didn't lead to the playoffs before. But this year's different. Like, they got off to a slow start, obviously, but they have been really good now and pretty consistent for 2 months with various goaltenders, and they look like a team that's really confident. And huge weekend for them. They beat Montreal, and then they shut out the Islanders, and now they actually jump ahead of Montreal in the standings. They're tied in points, but Buffalo has more regulation wins. They've also played one fewer game. So no, I think the same. Now the East is so tight; they're not safe by any stretch of the imagination because you got the 2-time defending champs lurking 6 points back. But they've given themselves a little bit of a cushion here with 31 games remaining. They're 6 points up.
I just want to be in the building if it happens. I just want to be in the building for that first playoff game, right? Don't you? Like, there's some things like in the postseason, there's like, boxes you want to check, games you definitely want to go to. Stanley Cup Finals, of course, at tops of everybody's list. Buffalo Sabres make it in. I want to be at that first game. just to remind myself what a great Buffalo Sabres crowd sounds like. Right, because I've made the point here on this program before. It's like that great blend of American fan and Canadian fan from the St. Catharines Hamilton corridor that go down. Plenty of season ticket holders on the other side of the border. I just want to be there to hear it, and I want to be there to see it, just to see the Buffalo Sabres in that first playoff game. Finally, to your point, Lindy Ruff is back, and I just want to be in the building, Greg's. I just want to be in the building.
It would be amazing. And look at here we are today. And I know that there's 29, 30 games, depending who's playing, 32 for some teams left in the season. But you look today, the Detroit Red Wings are in the playoffs. The Buffalo Sabres are in the playoffs. The Pittsburgh Penguins are in the playoffs. The New York Islanders are in the playoffs. The Boston Bruins are in the playoffs. Like, we're talking significant changeover from last year's playoff teams if it sticks, right? And there is a 5-point bulge right now. The Bruins have the second wildcard spot. Now Florida does have 2 games in hand, but they're 5 back. The Flyers are 5 back. The Leafs lost again today. They're 5 back, and they don't have any games in hand. Like, we could be seeing, Jeff, a significant amount of playoff changeover, which doesn't happen very often in the NHL.
No, it doesn't. And as much as I'd like to see the Buffalo Sabres in the playoffs, also want to see some playoff games in that. Even though we don't even call it a new arena anymore, I want to see some playoff games in that rink in Detroit. I think, Red Wings fans are some of the craziest as well. That's a loud fan base. Would love to see that. You mentioned the Maple Leafs lost Sunday again. This one at the hands of the Colorado Avalanche. So they lose an emotional one on Friday. The Mitch Marner return. Okay, I understand it. First of all, Vegas is a really good team, despite, as we record this right now, they're getting blanked by Ottawa, 6-0. We'll see what that final score ends up being here. But and then they come and they lay an egg against the Avalanche. And even when it was 2-0, the team's getting wildly outshot. I even think that 4-1, the score was kind to the Maple Leafs. Like, Boston is ascending. The Maple Leafs are dropping. And the only thing, I'll tell you what, the only thing that I could think of that I could possibly offer a Maple Leafs fan at this point right now, it's good that it's happening now. At the end of June, it's good that it's happening now, because if it happens after trade deadline, or if you're flirting too much with a playoff spot come trade deadline, you may end up making a really dumb move. For the Maple Leafs, if they're going to miss, for the benefit of this organization, this is the best time to do it. It is actually good, if they're going to miss, that it happens now. So they can't trick themselves into thinking they're a better team than they actually are. Because this team flat out can't defend. Like spot quiz, which teams allowed more goals, the New York Rangers or the Toronto Maple Leafs? It's the Maple Leafs, and the Rangers find themselves in last place in the Eastern Conference. It is better that this happens now for the Maple Leafs. Overall, I know it's a bitter pill for Maple Leafs fans. It is better now, because if it happens later, you might trick yourself into doing something stupid. So this is actually a blessing for Maple Leafs fans. How about that, Grace?
Yep. Well, that's a good theory, and probably in practicality, I think makes sense, because you're right. If all of a sudden you make some acquisitions at the deadline and then your team's not good, and Toronto their defending has not been good. Obviously, goaltending, they've had injuries and everything else, and now William Nylander is out, and that's obviously a big blow to their offense. So the problem is, Jeff, when you look at their team, like, you've got Scott Lawton, who's a UFA, and you got Calle Yarncroc, and, those type of guys will have some value, but I'm assuming they want to re-sign Bobby McCann. If they didn't, that guy would have some value at the deadline. But, Troy Stetcher, I guess, has come in and played really well, but, and it's not like there's a shakeup unless they're going to deal someone with term.
Yeah, and that's an interesting question too, because it seems like the smart thing here is, the core players you keep then, but by the time trade deadline rolls around, for all the players that generally don't have term, you want to move and start to build up other assets in other areas, and maybe start to redo something with that pipeline. I do wonder about Max Domi, speaking of players with term. Now, he does have some trade protection, has looked better playing up on the top line with Austin Matthews, but if there are offers that come in for Brad Treliving, I wonder if that could give him cause for pause. But to me, if you look at the Maple Leafs right now, If it's not any of those core players, Matthews, Nylander, Nyes, Tavares, how do you not entertain conversations for those players considering how this year has gone? You have to, like, if you're Brad Treliving, you have to do something either to add or subtract here.
Yeah, well, 100%. And I'm going to be, he's very intriguing. There's lots of these teams and they'll have extra time. I know some people thought, oh, you know what? We'll see a lot of trades before the Olympic break. And in theory, that does make sense, right? Because now a guy has 3 weeks to adapt and find place and do everything. Now, some of these guys are going on holidays for a week, which is fine. You come back from your holiday and then you're like, okay, I got 10 days. I've got a new team to go to. That, in theory, does make sense. But where it doesn't make sense is it's 3 weeks of cap space that some teams look and say, well, we'd rather wait. And when every dollar matters, 3 weeks of cap space is a big difference. So whether it's accruing cap space or not paying for the cap space. So, it depends which team I think is doing it. If it's teams right up against the cap, then maybe not. So it all depends. I think, I don't know if it's going to be a pre-trade deadline, maybe a little bit, but I'm not sure it's going to be as heavy as some have suggested.
And that's where I look at a team like the Detroit Red Wings, who have loads of cap space. Like this is advantage Yzerman here, right? Because the amount of cap space the Detroit Red Wings have is nearing ungodly. Like they can do whatever they want when they want, pretty much. And that's an advantage, right? Like if you're competing with another team for the services of a player and you say, we'll take them now. We'll take the 3 weeks. That's fine. We'll take it. We can pay it. No problem. That's an advantage and a luxury that the Red Wings have that other teams flat out don't. And you can be sure that the Red Wings will, then the Red Wings will be very much in them, and they already are. Red Wings are very much in the market. One forward, one defenseman. Does Yzerman get both? We'll see.
Another team that's suddenly rolling, and we'll get to the West later, is the Anaheim Ducks, and they got a boatload of cap space as well. But I want to quickly stick in the East, and then we'll go out West. The Boston Bruins, and everybody's raving about Swayman, and rightfully so. But who's been excellent the past month is Joonas Korpisalo. He's got a 9 of all goalies who have played at least 5 games. He's got a .940 save percentage and a 1.79 goals against. The only guy who might push him is Stuart Skinner, who's currently hasn't allowed a goal in that game in Vancouver as we're recording this, and he's at a .933 and has already faced 18 shots. So it depends what happens there. He might push it, but Korpisalo as your backup has been phenomenal for the Bruins. They're getting great goaltending regardless who's in net.
By the way, nice to see Ben Kindle score in his hometown. He got a nice polite ovation when they announced the goal as well, scoring in Vancouver. So that was that was really nice. Well, the thing about Korpisalo is we've seen this before, in stretches, right? We saw this in Columbus. We saw this in Los Angeles. We have seen this out of Joonas Korpisalo before. I've taken the bait. Oh, that's it. Joonas Korpisalo has arrived. How come the Oilers aren't giving up that second-round pick to bring Korpisalo in? What are they waiting for? And then they'll have those stretches where he's really hard to hit. I do wonder, I'm not sure how you look at these things, Griggs, but whenever I look at goaltenders having great seasons, I always look at both goaltenders. And if their save percentages are similar, I say, yeah, both of them are playing well, but that's more about the team environment when the goalie save percentage is the same than anything else. But if the goalie save percentage, if one guy's rocking a .930 and the other guy's got a .901 or an .899, you say, okay, you know what? The goalie that's rocking the 9, that really is impressive. But again, stop me if you've heard this one before. The Boston Bruins have the luxury of now having 2 elite goaltenders to choose from, which just means that you can rest guys. You can rest goaltenders down the stretch. And do we start to see, again, I think we're all wondering about it, in the era of flip-flopping goalies here, do we start to see goalies, the Boston Bruins platoon the goaltender should they get to the postseason? Or do you just go the traditional, hey, Swayman's got the hot hand, we're just going to roll with him?
Yeah. I think it's great to ride too. It helps them, especially if you want to get to the playoffs, to have your starter not overtaxed. And when your backup can put in that many good games over a month period of time, now you have the option to say, you know what, maybe we have one less game for Swayman. Just not. 100%. It's not like you're going to go to an even split or anything like that. But I'm just talking one extra rest game here or there for some guys can make a big difference. But the Boston Bruins are another team I put in that kind of surprise category this year. They've really bounced back. They're doing a good job. Now, again, nothing's safe because of the games in hand for the Panthers. the two-time defending champion. But, there are some teams in a good spot. Another one of those teams you mentioned, Ben Kindle and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Stuart Skinner's gone there, and he's been excellent, right? The first game against Edmonton wasn't good, not a huge surprise, but really his first two starts since then, he's been money for the Penguins. And, they were getting crushed early in the game, and Skinner stood on his head, and now they score twice. And, Ben Kindle, the rookie, continues to produce. But I want to talk about Evgeni Malkin, who looks like he's been reborn since coming back from injury. Like, there's just a lot of enjoyment and youthful exuberance, it seems, on that Pittsburgh team right now.
And he's like, well, first of all, he's amongst the elite of all time in the NHL, period, full stop. Second of all, to your point, like, it looks like he's having fun, and it doesn't matter if he's playing center, doesn't matter if he's playing on the wing. He just really wants to be there, really wants to contribute, having a productive season. I really wonder what Kyle Dubas and the Penguins do here, because he wants to play at least another season. And that the Pittsburgh Penguins want to start to turn this thing over. Now, Crosby has another year after this. Malkin would like to do the same. If you're Kyle Dubas here, how sensitive are you around this issue and the idea of blocking other players that might be ready, whether it's McGorty, whether it's Koivunen? How sensitive are you to, he's a legend, he's a Pittsburgh Penguin, Hall of Famer, all of that. He wants to come back for a year. It's not like he's going to embarrass himself out there, versus we need to start moving in some of our younger guys here. Like, we all know what the program is. It's a tough call, because how do you say no to a legend who wants to come back for another year and isn't going to embarrass himself, right? It's not just you want to come around for the paycheck. Like, to your point, Malkin's been productive, and he's been really, really good. And I don't know that I can see Malkin playing, as Kopitar's replacement with the Los Angeles Kings next year if he wants to play another year. Like, I don't know, I can only see him in a Penguins uniform. I think in his mind, he'll only play as a Pittsburgh Penguin. So you're Kyle Dubas. What do you do with this? What do you do here?
Wow. Is a young guy going to be as productive as Malkin? And why can't you have young guys mixed in with Malkin and Crosby? Like, what an unbelievable situation to learn from, right? Like, that's the best one if they're veterans, because they're not like 29, 30-year-old vets who are all about, like, not saying they don't want to win, but you're just different at that stage of your career, right? You're probably a little bit more relaxed. It's just, all the psychology, and you look in life as we get a little bit older, we all calm down a little bit. And so Malkin infinitely more enjoying the NHL now probably than he did when he was 10 years, and you're super amped up and you're alpha dog, and not that he doesn't care. It's just different. And I think those guys, you bring in young guys, they love seeing the young guys, they feed off of them, but they're also, can give them so much advice if they ask for it, right? They would never go out of their way. And so to me, if Malkin keeps playing like this, I'm going year at a time.
We mentioned Ben Kindle a couple of seconds ago, and I can't help believing that if it wasn't the Pittsburgh Penguins who drafted Kindle, and he wasn't in the room and on the ice and off the ice and the plane and the hotels and all of that, if he wasn't around Sidney Crosby, like if he was on another team right now, he probably would have been, and no offense to Ben Kindle whatsoever, excellent hockey player, but if he was drafted by anyone other than the Pittsburgh Penguins and he wasn't around Sidney Crosby to gobble all this information up and learn how to be a pro, I'm guessing he's still playing with the Calgary Hitmen of the Western Hockey League.
Yeah.
That he's not still in the NHL here late January. And I think that it's funny. I talked to Dubas about this on the sheet at the beginning of the year. I said, like, are you looking to sort of hasten along this rebuild and move the prospects forward as quick as you can, just to make sure that, the Koivunens, the McGortys, and the Kindles and all these guys are in the room with Crosby? Like, you want them to see that. Like, there's so much value there in, like, this is the work rate that we have. This is the level that we perform at. This is the level we practice at, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. He said no, but somewhere in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, one of the biggest luxuries the Penguins have right now is getting their kids in the room with Crosby. And you could probably say the same thing about Malkin, to your point, too.
Yeah, no, it is definitely a big advantage. And I look at the Penguins, and, we talked a little bit about Toronto, Jeff, and if you're the Penguins, like, how big, you don't take huge swings, but they might take like I'm not saying this is a player they go after, but a Scott Lawton type, right? A third line player. It's not going to cost you. It's not going to mortgage your future on it, but just brings in and strengthens your lineup. Because sometimes that can just be a message to your team. We believe in you guys. Here we go. We've added a piece that's not a massive piece, because I don't think that they're at a stage where they would, give off first rounders and top prospects to a guy. Maybe I'm wrong.
No,
but I would be surprised by that. So you could still make a move and just, adds a little juice and excitement to your team.
I think that I think to your point, it's a really good reward for the players too. But let's not forget as well, like when we talk about development, one of the things that I don't think we spend enough time discussing is the idea of part of development is teaching your young players what a full season feels like, what a full competitive season feels like, whether they make the playoffs or not. Like, even let's say we'll use your example, Scott Lawton. They go out and they go get Scott Lawton, and it's a march for the playoffs and trying to get in the Metropolitan or grab a wild card, and they come up a little bit short. To me, that's still a smart play, even if they don't make it to the playoffs, because all the kids on that team, all the young players, and specifically Ben Kendall, know what a full competitive season feels like. Because Crosby knows what that feels like. Malkin knows what that feels like. Letang knows what that feels like. And you want to get as many of your players knowing what a full season feels like, as opposed to, we're a bunch of kids, our team's out in January, we're just going to lick the envelope, mail it in, be a bunch of empty calorie games. That doesn't do you any good. You want to have your kids in the race as long as you can. That's a huge piece of the development picture, I think.
Yeah, definitely it is. Now let's go to the West. I'm going to bring Pat Puff in a bit. The Anaheim Ducks have had quite the season. They started out, look at the Ducks, and then they went crashing down. They only won 2 of their next 15. They go from 19-10-1 to 2-11-2, and you're thinking, they're frittering away their season. Brutal. And what do the Ducks do? They pull it out of the ditch. They've won 6 in a row. They're in Calgary tonight. Dostal's going to start. They're going for 7. Then they got Edmonton tomorrow, who makes any team facing the second half of back-to-back a lot harder than it probably should be for the Oilers. But what do you make of the Ducks in this? Like, they're a younger team, but I'm telling you, their ability to pull themselves out of that month-long drought where you only won 2 of 15 games to win 6 in a row. They beat Dallas. They beat Colorado. Like, they beat some good teams in these 6-game stretch. So I give the Ducks and Joe Quenneville huge credit for them to really salvage their season and get back on the rails.
And the other thing we should mention as well, doing it all without Leo Carlson. And Mason McTavish gets dinged. And all of a sudden, Marcus Granlund is your number 1 center, and Ryan Poehling is your number 2 center. Beginning of the season, like, I don't think that what we saw at the beginning of the season were the real Ducks, just like I don't think that swoon was the real Ducks. Those were 2 streaks. I don't think you can make your mind up about teams just based on a streak, positive or negative. I sort of follow the pendulum theory that pendulums overcorrect until they find their balance point, and that's where the team really is. And this feels a little bit closer to where the Anaheim Ducks might really be. Like, the beginning of the season, like, they essentially found one pair on the back end that was working, and that was Jacob Trouba and Olin Zellweger. Now, you and Rupper had a great conversation on the last podcast about the defense situation with USA and Jackson Lacombe, and I couldn't agree with you guys more. I think everyone's going to have their eyes open wide just about how good this guy really is. But to me, this has been, like, well, first of all, Dostal has been excellent. And when you have a goaltender playing like Lucas Dostal, it covers up a lot of blemishes and makes you look maybe better than you really are. But having said that, this is why he got Joel Quenneville, right? Like, this is the Quenneville factor here. This is why Quenneville is amongst the best coaches to ever be behind the bench. And this is why, he makes it easy to recruit players. Hey, you don't want to play for Joel Quenneville? And this is part of the lure maybe for Artemi Panarin as well, who of course has a background with Joel Quenneville. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But this is a team, I'm always curious about how managers put squads together. Does this not, Jason Gregor, look, feel, skate like a Pat Verbeek team? It is skilled, absolutely, and it is tough. Whether it's Ross Johnston, whether it's Jacob Trouba, whether it's Jeffrey Vial, Like, this is that team that we look at and we say, like, we're supposed to love teams like this because they have a little bit of everything that you want in a team. Is there some immaturity there? Yeah, of course, because we're dealing with a lot of kids too, but there's also the Killorns and the Kreiders and the Trubas of the world in there too. Like, this does look like the Pat Verbeek team, right? Like the 400 goals and the 2,500 penalty minutes. That's the Anaheim Ducks. Like, this is when this thing fully clicks, Greg's, when this thing all comes together and they are a consistent playoff team, everybody is going to love watching Anaheim games. Just like we're getting glimpses of San Jose and how good that's going to be. And man, those games are going to be really good for a long time. We're going to love, when this all clicks, watching Ducks hockey. I really believe that.
Yeah. And the one thing about the Ducks and their 6-game winning streak, there's only been one game where their goalie faced more than 28 shots. And so they've kept the shots down like 22, 22, 18, 25. There was the one game against Colorado where Dustal was unreal, stopping 40 at 41.
Yeah.
Right. Like he was fantastic, but they've learned how to be a little bit better defensively at times. And they put themselves in the mix. And I think that's all they wanted in Anaheim this year, was to be in the mix. And they're in the mix, with Seattle, who won again today, and San Jose and LA. And so, one of those 4 teams will get the number 3 spot, most likely behind Edmonton and Vegas. But then they're also battling, Utah is starting to come on. They've won 5 in a row. They have the number 2 wild card spot right now at 58 points. So, you know what? There's kind of, 3 spots, I think, maybe up for grabs in the West, the 3rd place in the Pacific, and then the 2 wild card spots. Although, Utah is starting to get a little bit of separation by themselves, and it'll be fun down the stretch here. It's not as tight as the East. There's more teams in the East, but we're starting to see separation there too. And in another 10 days, Jeff, we might have it down to say, okay, there's like 4 teams for 2 spots in each conference.
Well, one quick final note on Anaheim from this corner too. This is the first year. I mean, there's always pressure on general managers. We all know that. But this was the season where there was going to be, and is, significant pressure from ownership on Pat Verbeek. Okay, you've had the runway here to put this together. We've given you what you needed. There's enough time has elapsed now. Now ownership wants to see a return on investments. That's why when they're going through that swoon, I'm like, this really isn't good for Pat Verbeek. But this was the year where, okay, we've given you time to put all this together. Now let's see some results. So far, so good. Even if they just get to the playoffs, like, that's enough, I think, for ownership to say, great job, come back at it next year. But we'll see.
Yeah.
When you write a hot goaltender, anything can happen.
They got to get in. Before we get to Pat, I do want to touch on something that doesn't happen very often in the National Hockey League that happened on Saturday night in Edmonton. Evan Bouchard, it was the 7th time in NHL history, but it's only been done by 5 defenders, where they had a hat trick and at least 6 points. We got to go back to 1922. Sprague Cleghorn did it. Now, in 1922, I should preface this by saying each team was dressing like 8 skaters, right? So I don't think it was 5-on-5. Right, I think it was 4-on-4. So it's a little bit still. Sprague Cleghorn did it. He gets credit. He's in the NHL record books. He was the first one to do it.
Yep.
And then no defenseman did it for 50 years until Bobby Orr in 1971. He had 3 goals, assists for 6 points. Then 2 years later in 73, 3 goals, 4 assists, 7 points. The next year, 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points. Then 3 years later, probably the most surprising one, Tom Bladen. 4 goals, 4 apples, 8 points. Unreal game
against
by him.
Against Cleveland.
Yeah.
Was that 11-1 wrong? But still, hey, I know you're right.
Everybody else played Cleveland.
I know.
Everybody else played him. They didn't beat him. So.
I get it. All right.
And then Doug Crossman in 1992 had 3 goals, 3 assists, and 6 points. And so we're talking, what were we talking? 34 years later. Evan Bouchard, 3 goals, 3 assists, 6 points. He also made 2 the play he made to keep the puck in at the blue line allowed the Oilers to tie the game in the final minute. He made another great play in overtime. He had a huge hit. It was, and here's the best part of the story. So I was talking to Evan after the game. At any level of hockey, he's never had a hat trick. He was like, you know what? Yes, he's never had a hat trick in minor hockey.
What?
Never had a hat trick. Yes. I was blown away.
I'm stunned. I'm absolutely stunned that he's never had. So first of all, let me pick up on and bring it to Canada here. The conversation that you and Rupper had on the last pod about Jackson Lacombe, and how come it's not Hudson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It is interesting in Canada, and it's the same blue line as the Four Nations, but be it Colton Parayko and be it Drew Doughty, Evan Bouchard's a better defenseman than both. Yeah, and he can kill penalties, and he can transition pucks, and he can pass, and. I don't know why there's not more conversation about this outside of the Edmonton market.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that see the highlights, and that's what we become sometimes. People watch the highlights, and will Evan Bouchard have a few giveaways that make you go, ooh? Yes, but he makes a ton.
Has the puck a lot.
Of really good.
He has the puck a lot,
right?
He has the puck a lot. You're gonna give
He kills penalties, right? Like he's probably Edmonton's best defensive penalty killer right now, and he plays a ton of minutes. People, you know what? It's power play points. I'm like, he has 20 power play points. Cale Makar has 19. What are we talking about here? Right? It's not any different, really.
Yeah.
And he's actually, if you look at it, you could argue he's a better weapon than Cale Makar in the power play because of his shot. Make no mistake. Bouchard has the most consistent heavy shot in the National Hockey League. It's not even close as far as 90 plus miles an hour, and he's extremely accurate.
And here's the other thing about shots from the point. Pete DeBoer was always big on this. Not shooting to score, shooting to make rebounds. I've always been told, watch defensemen who shoot to make rebounds. And this is what, wherever Pete DeBoer goes, this is a big one for his defense. Because I was so many shots to the point, so many shots. He's making rebounds. You look at playoff goals specifically. So many playoff goals scored off of rebounds. Big game goals scored off of rebounds. Here's it's I'll tell you another thing about Evan Bouchard. Let me frame it this way. You know, we used to always marvel at the 5-man units of the Russians, and Hockey Canada likes that, Makar and Taves, and likes the pairs and symmetry and all that. Hockey Canada could have had this for Team Canada this year. Taves, Makar, McKinnon, right? 5-man units are tough. And they could have had McDavid, Hyman, Bouchard, all familiar with one another, all running out on different lines. You have a thought on that one? Not the 5-man unit, but the 3-man unit.
Yeah. I get it, and it makes sense for sure. Hyman could still be added in place of Braden Point, because I do know for a fact the plan was for Braden Point to be the right winger with Connor McDavid. Now that obviously has to be adjusted unless Braden Point's going to get on the ice here in the next 2 weeks. I really hope for his sake he does. You don't want to see a player miss the Olympics due to injury. That'd be the worst, right? You look at Team Sweden dropping like flies, unfortunately for them. Seth Jones for Team USA, it's no good. But so I can see that. And the thing about Bouchard is when you look at his playoff performance, no one can deny how elite he's been the last few seasons in the playoffs. It's not even close to any defender. Now, if you don't like Bouchard and he frustrates you because he has some turnovers in October, November, December, that's valid, but that shouldn't overweigh all of the very good plays. Now, at the end of the day, it might not matter. Canada's the favorite, and their depth is very good, and I think they're probably going to win. And if they win, people are going to say you can't complain, and there is some truth to that. But it's also fair to say, hey, here's a guy and what he's doing this season and what he's done for the last few years, especially in the playoffs,
not just this season,
that is way better than the public perception is. I call it highlight and analysts. And that's all they look at is they look at a few highlights. Oh, you know what? I didn't like this. Sure. That's a bad giveaway. No problem. But there's way more good plays that don't get talked about on the same level.
Watch him transition pucks. Watch him get pucks to the neutral zone. Watch him get pucks to the guys. Watch him kill penalties. All of it. To the turnover part, listen, when you have the puck on your stick as much as Evan Bouchard does, you're going to turn the puck over every now and then. I'm sorry. That's just the reality. But when you look at percentages, okay, so if let's say Evan Bouchard costs you two scoring chances against you, but he creates 10, with percentages like that, you win all day long.
Yep.
And that's the thing that I always come back to with the giveaways. Okay, so that led to a scoring chance. How many did he create at the other end? Because if he gives up 2 and he creates 10, guess what? That's +8. I'll take that all day long. Any sane person would. So that's why I think, to your point, I don't like just seeing that one highlight. It's like, give me the full snapshot. Sure, here's the negative. Show me the positive too, and which one comes out on top. And the majority of times, it all comes out on top, on the positive for Evan Bouchard.
Yeah. Another we should mention, because we haven't really talked about him, Nikita Kucherov is on fire. Nikita Kucherov wasn't even the top 20 scoring for a long time. He's moved up to 3rd. Now, the problem for him is, since December 1st, Connor McDavid and Kucherov both are averaging 2 points a game. McDavid's played more games, 27 to 23. He's got 54 points. Kucherov has 46 points. He's been on fire in that time, as has McDavid. And Kucherov has really vaulted himself up to 3rd place in league scoring. He's playing fantastic. Obviously, McDavid, it's funny, it's rare to overshadow a 5-point night for McDavid where no one really talks about it, but Bouchard had 6 points, and including a hat trick. And he did do that. And that's just how good of a game it was. But man, Kucherov and the Tampa Bay Lightning, I know they finally lost to Columbus, and Marchman had the hat trick, and Columbus is trying to scratch and claw their way to get back in the race. It might be too late. We'll see. But that Tampa run was in no Braden Point for a lot of it. Nikita Kucherov, again, probably not talking about enough just how good he is for the Tampa Bay Lightning.
And doing it all as a winger too, right? We always talk about the power positions, the center, the blue line, the goalie. We don't talk about wingers a ton. We do when it comes to Alexander Ovechkin. But, we don't necessarily talk about wingers in the same way we talk about Connor McDavid driving the Oilers and Nathan McKinnon, et cetera, Macklin Celebrini with the San Jose Sharks. The thing about Kucherov that I've always admired, I'm always curious about the players that the players like watching. For the longest time, guys would gush about Marian Hossa. He was the player that all the players were like, oh man, Hossa, you throw any puck at him, he can grab it. Throw in his skates, doesn't matter. Throw it behind him, he won't break stride. He was the player that all the players admired, and the players wanted to watch Marian Hossa. I get that same thing from Kucherov. That he's the guy that players will watch and go and Datsuk was the same way before him. That players will watch and go I have no idea how he does this. I'll tell you, this is I really wish Braden Point, didn't have the injury this year, because one of my favorite things, and Griggs, I still bite on it every single time. Let me know if you do as well. That play when Kucherov lines up for the one-timer and he's about to hit it and then he slides it over to Point? I bite every time. Yeah. And I should know it's coming. But there is no one that has mastered the art of deception in the NHL right now better than Nikita Kucherov. It is one of the great skills, and I don't know if it can be taught, if it's natural, I don't know, but no one is a magician that way. No one is that kind of confidence trickster, card shark. No one does that the way that Kucherov does. He's the master of the fake. Everyone believing one thing and the other thing happens. He's the master. Yeah. He's the best.
No, he is very good. Let's bring in Pat Puff to the show. Patty, how are you, man?
What's up, Pat? I'm doing great. Yeah, just get back from the Jasper Pond Hockey Tournament, so a little sore, a couple bruises on the shins, but other than that, I got the championship. So
bruises on the liver.
Well, maybe, which is probably why we're pushing buttons and stuff behind the scene here too. But we're powering through at the end of the day.
We all play hurt.
Exactly. Buy or sell, brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the bet is, never ordinary. Bet365. Download the app, get in on the game. Use code NATION. Bet365 must be 19 or older. I'm glad we're sitting in the Pacific Division right now in the conversation. I'm just going to keep rolling with that. We talked earlier in the show about Vegas getting smoked by the Senators 7-1 tonight. The Carter Hart experiments, a bit of a hit or miss. Both him and Adin Hill have an 871, which Hills is probably going to get worse after letting 7 in tonight. So my question is, buy or sell? Is this the goalie tandem that we're going to see Vegas take into the playoffs, Greg?
Ooh, that's a good question, man. I'm trying to think of a goalie that's available to go get. that's going to be an improvement because Adin Hill, that Vegas tied their worst loss in franchise history, a 6-goal deficit. That late goal from Rasmus Andersson kept them not getting shut out and losing by 7. They've never lost by 7. Granted, their franchise isn't even a decade old yet, but man, no one feels sorry for Vegas. They've had a lot of success, but it is a great question when you look at what are they going to do, because the thing about Vegas is they are not hesitant to make moves, but their team was awful today. It wasn't just the goaltending, it was their team, but the goaltending numbers haven't been good. And I think they probably still believe in Hill, and they got Kirschmead and they got Carter. They got 3. So like, how many more goalies can you bring in? Now, Vegas is the one franchise that will do anything that you don't expect. They don't care. They kind of beat to their own drum. And I'm not saying that as a negative. I kind of respect it that hey, this is what we're going to do. We'll trade away picks all day long and we're going to remain competitive. That's how we work. But I don't know a goalie out there that I look and say, okay, this is a clear upgrade, because they can't bring in another question mark. They got a lot of question marks.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like a player, like a goalie, like you think of the goaltenders that would be available. Like Elvis Merzlikins, Laurent Brossoit. Like there are a handful of guys out there that you could get. Calvin Pickard is another one. But I mean, how many of these goaltenders are? I know the goalies are struggling, but how many of these goaltenders are going to be that significant upgrade that you would go out there and actually pull the trigger on? Like, if the Buffalo Sabres weren't being the Buffalo Sabres right now, I'd say, like, hey man, if you're the Vegas Golden Knights, roll the dice on Alex Lyon. But is there any way right now the Buffalo Sabres are going to let Alex Lyon go? Not a chance. No. Right? Like, all of a sudden, like the goal, because we were all wondering, okay, they got a lot of goaltenders here in Buffalo. What are they going to do about it? Who's going to be the odd player out? But given the way the Sabres are playing right now, they're not going to do anything. They're not moving this team an inch to the left and an inch to the right. All they're trying to do is get Alex Tuch a contract extension. So when the Buffalo Sabres got on their winning horse here, the goalie market, Greg's, kind of dried up a little bit, didn't it? That's how it felt to me.
Yeah, there's not a lot, right? Like Stuart Skinner's being traded and he's killing it for Pittsburgh, and Tristan Jarry got traded. Yeah. So there's not a ton of them left out there to do. Like, I guess Buffalo would trade you Colton Ellis, I'm sure, but I don't think
they like him.
An upgrade money.
They like him. They honestly, they still like him. They like him.
Yeah, they like, and they might just keep him. But like, look at this run since December 1st. Alex Lyon's 9-0. He's 9-0. He can't go anywhere. Like, you can't look too far ahead and miss the present. The Sabres should all be about the present. And so Colton Ellis, if he's your number 3, he's your number 3. That's great. Way you go. And they could like him, but then keep him for later. But man, the way Alex Lyons played, every time he gets opportunities, not just in Buffalo, but in previous stops, this guy gets a job done. Maybe teams have to start realizing Alex Lyons is a good NHL goalie.
Yep. Now the thing about Vegas too is, and it's interesting because I thought that they weren't going to be able to make the Rasmus Andersson move and still keep Trevor Connolly. So they still have him. So even though Vegas has like just gone scorched earth with picks and everything, they still do have one significant piece that they can play here in Trevor Connolly. So we'll see if they use that, if Kelly McCrimmon uses him this year to bring in a goaltender. My guess is no, but I don't think that means that the Vegas Golden Knights are done, because I can still see McCrimmon making a move to help his team come trade deadline. I just don't know that it's going to be a goaltender. So there's my answer for you, Pat. I think this is probably your tandem.
Okay, that's perfect. And it kind of leads me into my next one, because while we're in the Pacific, I mean, have you seen enough from Vegas to be confident that they're going to win the Pacific Division? Right now, they're minus 260. The Oilers are plus 375, which there could be some juice there if you're betting on the Oilers, but also if the Oilers can win a couple, you might be able to get Vegas at a better number. So where are you sitting in the Pacific Division right now with, the way things are going and the goaltending, and Edmonton's goaltending situation? We was on a high and now we're not sure. So what do you think?
To me, it's jump ball still between the two. Really, like that's going to be one of the interesting races in the Western Conference. Again, like if you asked me at the end of the night on Saturday who the better team was and who's going to win, I'm going Oilers all day. But I'm caught up in the emotion of the 6 points by Evan Bouchard, Zach Hyman tying it up, and then Connor McDavid in overtime, and the place going banana sandwich. And I'm like, oh no, it's Oilers all the way. They're back, etc. But then take a sober second look at everything. To me, it's still a jump ball between these two teams, because at the end of it, I still don't think that Stan Bowman is done, and I still don't think that Kelly McCrimmon is done here at all.
No, gosh, no, not at all. Vegas 3 in a row, so that would be a big reason why I would like Vegas's chances. They also are 2 points ahead. That could be good or bad, but they've got a little bit of a tougher schedule here before the Olympic break. That's when they'll make up the other game in hand. Or one of them, I should say, anyway. So, you know what? I look at that Montreal game, man. The Canadians will be pissed the way they lost the other day. So, both them and Vegas, I think, that should be a game to watch for any fans looking for a game of the week. I think that Vegas-Montreal game on Tuesday night should be pretty spicy, just because you got two teams who want to play very well. And, Edmonton hasn't won a division since 1987, guys. Like, it's the longest drought in the NHL. So, will it end eventually? Maybe. But, man, I thought they've kind of blown it. The only thing for Edmonton is they have a lot of games left against the Pacific Division, including them and Vegas going heads up 3 times. And it might come down to those 3 games.
Yep. And, I don't think that either team is really going to blow their brains out to get top spot. I really don't. I don't think this to me doesn't sound like the Central whatsoever. I don't think either would be fixated on it.
Yeah, that's fair. I think it's just a good thing to mention. I mean, if you do think it's 50-50, plus 375 for the Oilers is looking pretty juicy. The last question I have for you, you briefly talked about Toronto making some sort of move and whether that would be before the Olympic break or after. And it kind of just got me thinking, do you think there's any teams out there that are going to make something happen before the Olympic break here? You said it's a good opportunity for them to get adjusted and kind of take their time with the move and all that. So, I mean, plain and simple, will there be another splash before the Olympic break, Greg's?
Yeah, I like Jeff's idea. Detroit, I thought was a team that would look to do something, and with their cap space, they could, they don't have to worry about the 3 weeks. That's irrelevant to them. So I think they're a team that would definitely do it. I think Edmonton would like to, even if it's shipping something out, I think they would like to. And the other team, guys, don't sleep on the Utah Mammoth. I think the Utah Mammoth, I know Logan Cooley's coming back, but they're rolling here. That organization is aggressive. They want to make the playoffs this year. The Smith family, they want to get in. So Utah is my other team that I'm looking at making a move before the Olympic break.
Yep, I'm good with those. I would imagine Utah would be looking at a right shot defenseman. It was not exactly a secret. I mean, we've talked about it before. Like, I really did wonder if Aaron Ekblad didn't re-sign with the Florida Panthers, does he end up on the top pair with Mikhail Sergachev with Utah? That one would have made a lot of sense. Detroit, I think that story is, like, listen, they were in there on Quinn Hughes as well. They didn't want to pay a similar, almost identical price that the Minnesota Wild ended up having to pay, but that doesn't mean that they're not in the market. So yeah, I do. And again, to the point about cap space, they have a lot of it, and that's an advantage because they can bring in a player that a team that's up against a salary cap can't. So would not surprise me whatsoever. The other team that I wonder about here too is I wonder what happens with the Winnipeg Jets and what they end up doing here. They've got Logan Stanley, and I don't know what the ask is from Logan Stanley's camp, but if it's like 5 times 5, is that something that Kevin Cheveldayoff looks at, balks at, and starts to think like, okay, maybe it's time to in a career season here for Logan Stanley, find something else. It's a team that is better on paper than we've seen in performance. I really do wonder about the Jets here and Kevin Cheveldayoff.
Logan Stanley, and I'm happy you brought him up, because to me, like, big men, in a lot of cases, Jeff, take longer to develop. And I'm looking at Logan Stanley, and it is a career year.
Chara.
There's no debate about that, right? And I look at him, the big guys, and I'm like, man, the Winnipeg Jets, I don't think they can afford to let Logan Stanley just go. I really don't, because the truth of the matter is there aren't 6'7", 230-pound guys who are that mobile, who are that tough, just floating around the league. And, he's added more to his game. You're hearing how Mike Scheifele talks about this guy just getting smarter and improving. So, man, I think this is a signing in our potential free agent signing. It hasn't got a lot of talk, But for a Winnipeg Jets team that's so far been a massive disappointment from last year, I would look and say, we got to keep Logan Stanley because we want to get back into being a playoff team right away. Otherwise, you trade him. What are you going to trade him for? Some draft picks? What? Great. You're not replacing him, right? It's hard to replace that guy.
So for further to that point, let me just add one more thing onto it. What's the one thing we said about, well, a couple of things. One of the major things we talked about with Winnipeg last year in the playoffs, their blue line is too small. Can you go deep with a blue line that is that small? And the answer was no. And got you by the St. Louis Blues, and even that was Game 7. So to that point, you're right. And at the end of the day, the consistency that we've seen for Stanley Cup winners is big blue lines that can defend. So to that point, with you, Griggs, on Logan Stanley.
All right, so keeping an eye on Detroit and Utah going into the Olympic break here, but that's all I have for you. Bet365, that is a buy or a sell.
Awesome stuff. Yeah, it's an interesting time, man. Like it's this streaky teams. We see Anaheim in the ditch, and now they pull it back out, and you see some other teams that are playing well, and Buffalo. Now, granted, they're streaking for 2 straight weeks, but the Toronto Maple Leafs are on the escalator down. Right, the St. Louis Blues, the Winnipeg Jets had an extended drought, and that's probably not 100% put them out, but it's not looking good for that team. And then you've got teams like the Pittsburgh Penguins keep rolling. It looks like they're 15 minutes away from winning again and having an unbelievable road trip. And Stuart Skinner playing very well. So you know what, Jeff, this has been one of the more surprising seasons that I can recall in quite some time. And I really hope that some of these teams finish it off, and we have potentially 5, 6, 7 new playoff teams.
I do want to see new ones. I've always wondered about. Let me pass one of my goofy theories along your way. I really like the Stanley Cup. Like I love going to see the Stanley Cup and looking at the names of the powerhouse teams, right? Like the Habs in the 70s and the Islanders and the Oilers, like Penguins. Like I like looking at like powerhouse teams. The only thing that I wonder about, and this is what makes, Florida winning a pair and Tampa, et cetera, and Chicago with their 3 and Kings with their 2. Early on in the salary cap, it was like Carolina wins, bam, right away. And then Anaheim wins, bam, right away. Do you think that, considering we're going to see a whole bunch of new teams here, we hope, do you think it devalues the Stanley Cup if too many teams are winning it and there's not like the powerhouse that rattles off 2 or 3 anymore? Because like I'm with you, like I want to see new blood. I want to see the Sabres. I want to see the Wings. Like, but at the same time, like, do you not want to see like, man, these were teams, as opposed to a team that, with all due respect to St. Louis, wrote a hot goaltender?
Yeah, but I think we have seen that. Like Pittsburgh had won back-to-back, recently. The Washington Capitals have been a really good team for a decade and finally won. St. Louis is the outlier. Look at Tampa Bay. They won 2 in a row. They went to a third. Florida has gone to 3 in a row, and they've won 2. We had Chicago. So getting into the playoffs, Jeff. So let's if I had to list my teams today and any of those new teams getting in, would any of them be in your top 6 for Cup contenders?
No, they wouldn't. No, they wouldn't. But having said that, I always catch myself and say, you're a hot goalie, run away from winning it. That's the story of hockey. You're a hot goalie. You're a hot, and again, like I know St. Louis might just be the outlier, but we've seen goaltenders take teams really, really far, and health is the ultimate equalizer. And if you're blessed with at least 1 and maybe 2 quick series along the way, 4 or 5, might be able to do something here.
Yeah, it's a great point, Jeff, because if you look at these teams like that are going to get in, do I think any of them are real contenders? No, but there's always a surprise, right? We've seen a lot of 8 teams get all the way to the Cup and then not win it. And so maybe that would be nice. St. Louis, although they ended up going on a run and didn't end up actually really being that bad of a team. And I do actually, because I've looked at it, I think the myth has grown bigger over the years from St. Louis. They were only 5 points out of the playoffs.
Yeah.
It wasn't like they were like 20 points back and they played great. They did move up the standings for sure. And then they got hot. You're right. And that year they just, Boston took it to them and made it a close series, but obviously the Blues deserve to win. And you're right, because they really haven't done anything since then and hadn't done anything really before then. They're the outlier. But I still think for the most part, the best teams stay in a window of being really good for a few years, right? We've had Tampa, Florida, even Edmonton's went to back-to-back cups. They just haven't won. And even Dallas has been in the Western Conference Final 3 years in a row and hasn't won. So I don't think it's any weaker. I just think there's going to be some fresh blood, but I think the big dogs will still be biting at the end.
As long as Buffalo gets in, again, like I said earlier, I just want to be there for that first game when those Buffalo Sabres come out and they play the Sabre dance. And it's like 1975 all over again, Jason Gregor and Jim Lorenz and the bat and the fog and all of it. Give me that again. And the Earl of Bud selling tins of Budweiser.
I would love to go, man. I've been to a game in Buffalo. I was actually there for the draft too in 2016 when my nephew got drafted. I love the atmosphere in Buffalo, and I go way back to the Buffalo's auditorium, great. Man. Like it was awesome. Same. So I hope they get in. Detroit's been a long time. I think the league's better when Montreal's in, Detroit's in. Like you need a little bit of fresh blood, and it keeps things exciting. And Anaheim hasn't been in the dance in a long time. Who knows? Maybe the Sharks can pull off the biggest surprise. Even the Penguins. Penguins haven't won a playoff series in 8 years. So, you could have a lot of franchises, maybe, if they finish it off here in the final 30 games, that give their fans lots to be excited about.
Would be a ton of fun. I'm with you, Greg. Would be a ton of fun. Let's see if we get there. A lot of hockey still. A lot of hockey.
Awesome. Well, that wraps it up, boys. That's a busy edition of The Rundown brought to you by Bet365. Have a great week. We'll talk to you guys next week. Talk to you on Sunday, Jeff.
Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Merrick, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.